Yo.
We live. You can hear me?
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes, sir. How's
All
it
right.
going?
Good. What's up, man?
Here, working away.
Yeah.
Never
Yo,
stops.
listen, man. Trust me. When I tell you it's difficult out here, you know the vibes.
Yeah, I got some questions for you too. So hopefully you can tell me about what's going on at your end. I was actually just admiring your logo. I was looking at your email, the TL, how you did it. I'm remaking mine right now, so that's actually really sick.
Yo, let me tell you, man. That was trial and error. Like that was trial and error. If you seen the first one, the first one was bad.
Yeah.
Yo, the first one looked like I made it in Microsoft Paint. I'm gonna send you a screenshot of it when we get off.
Yeah,
It was bad. It was like a T with an L, and then it had a little dot like a door handle. Yo, it was bad. Yeah,
Well,
it was
this one
bad.
looks sick.
It wasn't until I got over to Forest Hill and like the graphic design girl over there, Tatiana. Shout out to Tatiana. She's like, yeah, nah, like let me see what I could do, and that's what she came back with. So I was like, yo, fire.
I like it.
Yeah,
Really nice.
yeah, man. So, let's get to it. What time is it now? Let's give people a,
7:02.
yeah. Let's give them until like 7:05.
I know we got some people on Caribbean time, so I'm not mad at that.
Yeah, you already know how it is, man. Let me send this out. Yo, there's the questions I sent you, right?
Yeah.
Let me see. There's one that I removed.
Hopefully this the CSI Select, as interesting as
Yeah. The MLI Select, I removed it, but I replaced it with a different one, and that was number 8. So when we get to that, just remind me. Well, I remember, but in case I slip my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me, but I'm just gonna free ball.
Yeah. Who that? What time is it? 7:03. Give them another minute. I ain't gonna do 7:05. But yeah, just that one. Everything else is the same. So it's 20 questions. You just do the 15, and then like the 15 main ones, and then in the end, like I just do quick rapid fire for for the guests. Those I didn't send to you, so like it's a surprise, but it's nothing crazy though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Freestyling.
It's just like quick rapid fire, but it's nothing too crazy. Yeah, let's get to this. So introduce yourself, man, briefly. Let the people know,
Yeah, so my name is Jerome St. I'm a mortgage agent with the Vine Group. It's one of the biggest mortgage teams across Canada. We are nationally recognized. We have offices in Vancouver, Quebec, the main one being in Ontario. That's where I work out of. We do A lending, B lending, C lending, whatever your need is. We try to have a solution for every problem.
Right. So how long you been, like, it's not a real question, but like how long you been in the industry and like how long you been doing that?
Yeah, so I actually was very briefly with the bank. Like I've been a mortgage broker, with a mortgage brokerage pretty much the whole time. So Vine Group, I think I've been with maybe 8-9 years now. I actually started with them as a sales associate. So I was working with another mortgage broker, just doing strictly sales for him. And then eventually I got my license and became a mortgage agent. And I've been doing it since.
How long has that been?
Probably about 7 years.
Okay.
I've been on my own now. So I do have a team that works with me as well, some admin staff.
Big dog.
They're trying to make everything smooth as possible, right? We're competing with the bank, so we got to be more efficient than the bank.
And listen, that's the number one thing that I tell people. And obviously, a lot of people, they don't really understand how it works, but that's one of the main points I try to get across to them, right? Because obviously, everybody's financial profile is different. So I always try to get them to understand that, like, it's beneficial for you as the customer or the client to go work with a mortgage broker, because they just have access to more capital, and the banks, every single bank goes by their own underwriting guideline, and those guidelines shift often based on what's going on in the marketplace. So going to like a TD or Scotia Bank, like what you may have qualified for a year ago probably won't be the same as you do now. But I always let them know, like, yo, when you go to the mortgage broker route, there's just more flexibility in capital. So, it's just better for you.
No, 100%. Like I tell people, it's like if you were gonna go car shopping and you want to test out a product, you go to Lexus, they're gonna sell you Lexus. You go to Mercedes, they can only sell you Mercedes. Same thing with the bank. They can only offer you what they have. Versus someone like me that's working with all of them, I have no bias. Like I don't want one.
Yeah, no allegiance to one thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever works best for you, whether that's in terms of who's gonna give you the most money, whether that's in terms of who's gonna respect the way that you're paid. Some lenders are better with self-employed than others.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna find that, and then I'm gonna put you in front of them.
Okay. So, for someone new to the process, can you briefly explain how obtaining a mortgage works, especially in this current market?
Yeah. So I'll tell you what not to do. Don't get your heart set on a property and go say, Terry, I want to go see this place, and then after you see the place and you're like, yo, I want to buy it, go say, okay, let me go get qualified and see if I can afford it. That's the reverse order. But it seems to be like, I know so many people that don't even know what mortgage agents do. Even my friends included, they just, I don't know. They know we do something with real estate, but they don't know exactly what it is. You think real estate, you think realtor. Who's the realtor? They're going to figure it out. So that's why, especially for my business, people like you are so important, because they're going to say, hey, before I waste my gas and take you to see ABC property, let's see what you can actually afford. We don't want to get your heart broken. So I'm the first step in real estate, and it is really just looking at your finances. Sometimes it's about creating a budget. Sometimes it's about credit repair. But what we're doing is we're looking at how much the bank is willing to give you, usually right now versus if you were to make some changes. So I'll look at your full profile, what you do for a living, what type of debts you have. I'll underwrite it. I'll look at your income documents. I'll say this is how much a bank was willing to give you. And then if that's the number you need, then we're going to say, go over to Terry, you can get started looking. But if there's an issue or if there's anything I see, then the job is how do we repair this? How do we get this where it needs to be to get you the house that you want to get into?
Right. Yeah, I think, again, most people, they don't understand the process, right? And I think we definitely need to do a better job as an industry, educating people and let them know, like, listen, the mortgage portion is actually the first step. Like, I know a lot of people, they go based on what they see on TV and movies and everything. They think it's just, I get up and I go look at houses and then I figure everything out. But the finance is the actual first step of the entire equation, because our financing, none of this happens without it, right? Because you don't know what you qualify for.
Exactly. That'll save you realtors a lot of time as well.
Yeah.
For sure. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Why is getting pre-approved for a mortgage so important, and what does it entail?
So it entails basically, if we were to make it as simple as possible, the bank is going to look at everything that goes in your account versus everything that goes out of your account every month. With that, they're going to shoot a number out, and it has to be within certain guidelines. The problem is the guidelines are always changing, and they're getting a little bit tighter with the economy. They put that stress test into place a while back. So even sometimes when you can afford things, the government makes it so you're a little bit more conservative, so you're not reaching beyond your means, and making sure that there is that buffer there. So we have to kind of look at that number, give you what you would qualify for based on the government guidelines.
Okay. What are some important questions someone should ask when choosing a mortgage agent to work with, especially if they're new to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of similar to how you choose your realtor. You need someone that you trust. Reviews are really good. Word of mouth is really good. If you know someone that's worked with someone before and they had a good experience, that's probably the best bet. Don't go it because it's someone's auntie, uncle, daughter, son, cousin, not those type of referrals, but someone who's like, oh, they did a good job for you. That's probably the best place to start.
Yo, it's funny you say that, man. And not to and just because somebody's not on social, like that has any bearing on their knowledge base. But yeah, one time somebody's like, oh yeah, like I decided to use like so and so's family realtor or whatever, like I think my aunt or somebody, and I was just like, oh, like what's the name? Because like I wanted to check. Like me, I don't really get bent out of shape, whatever, right? Because I understand that one thing we overlook a lot is like agents, like on the buy side, is that like when it comes to family and friends, we forget that the home buying process is very personal. So like you're peeking into somebody's finances, and we often overlook that. Like that's very personal for some people, and it's like, yo,
That
somebody would
was
be,
that was that was huge for me.
yo, they would be related to you or very close to you, but that don't mean they want you to have a peek into like what their finances are. You know, like for
Yeah,
whatever reason, it could be
yeah,
like some type of status thing, or it could just be like, I don't want them to know I'm doing this bad or doing this good, right?
yeah,
So I asked,
yeah,
and yo, the agent didn't even have like Instagram or anything like that. I'm like, yo,
yeah,
how do you develop business in it, like
yeah,
in the era that we in? Like if you're not on socials and nobody like know who you are, like how? But it was like, yo, my aunt used them or whatever. That's their
yeah.
friend. So I'm like, all right, it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I get it. But no, that's so funny that you said the personal thing because when I first started, I was taking it personal if I knew someone and they weren't using me for business. But then I realized like it is that some people just don't. It's a very personal, like
Trust
looking
me,
for
man,
your
it's super
right.
personal. So I like, but it's one of those things where it's like, yo, you go through it and like you live and you learn, and you get
Yeah,
better because of it over time. Um,
and also confidentiality is huge.
yeah, for
Right.
sure.
So like if you work with someone and then like I'm working with, let's say, their brother, I might not even mention that I did their brother's mortgage just because you know what I mean. You want to know that it's private because with the bank is semi-private, and then like you want to know you're sending your documents to secure place. So confidentiality is huge in
And
the industry.
and again, that's another thing that, as a industry, we don't do a good job of communicating, especially like for us. Like all of those things are like federally protected in terms of confidentiality, right? So like I can say, yo, I did, like I was the buying agent for Jerome's sister's house, but like I can't go around saying like, yo, what the address was, how much they paid.
Yeah,
Like I can't do that. Like
yeah,
I'm legally bound
right,
to not do that, right? But again, they don't really know and understand that. But ultimately, I understand like where it is. Like it's a
of course.
comfort thing.
We got a question in the chat, and I actually was gonna ask you. They're saying, "Is this live gonna be safe?" Do you
Not
know? Does it
yeah, I
say?
saw that. Not on Instagram, but like I'm recording it on YouTube Live. So
Oh, perfect. I was
I'll
gonna
put up the
say,
link for it after. Yeah.
okay, because I want a copy as well.
Yeah. Why should someone consider working with a mortgage agent instead of going directly to a lender? I think we kind of covered that before, so I think we could skip
Yeah,
down.
yeah,
If
and it's
you
basically you get the variety, right? You get someone who's
right,
going to look out for your best interests, not just the bank's products. But even to add to that, depend. Sorry about that. I got a call,
oh, I was like,
and
yo,
it cut my recording too, so I'll
nah,
take it.
you good.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, so like imagine like you banked with, let's say you banked with CIBC your entire life, and then you go into them and you're having troubles now. And now like you used to be a client where you had perfect credit, but now someone loses a job, you have some debts, and you go to them, you say, hey, I'm having trouble paying the bills. I need a refinance. And now they look at your new profile and they're like, sorry, we've served you for the last 15 years, but you don't fit our profile anymore. Kick you to the curb. That's one of the main reasons that I got into this, to help those people and to
Yeah.
kind of be that one-stop shop. Because like I said, that's an A lender. A lenders can only help A clients. If you were to fall below a certain credit score, there's nothing they can do for you.
Usually,
That's one of the right?
and
That's
that
one of the major
that
factors.
score is usually like 680. Anything under that, then it's quiet for you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Under 680, maybe 650 with
yeah,
a good story, but it's just like I feel like that's it's like kind of hard, right? So for me, it's like, all right, we're gonna look at this. We're gonna look at the TDs. We're gonna look at the Scotias. If there's some trouble and you can't get there, whether it's bruised credit, whether the ratio just off for whatever reason, there's other options. There's e-lending. There's private funding, and we can, if only for a temporary solution, we can still help you. We're not gonna turn you away, and that's one of the main reasons I think it's why go to a bank that can offer you very limited options, and then when you really need them, they're not there to help you. Right? Work with that one person who knows the whole situation and can give you options.
right. What's the most rewarding aspect of your job?
Probably that. I mean, helping people. The market's changed so much right now, where it's not as, I don't know how to say this. It's not as rewarding, where it's not as much happy business. Like when I started, I worked with a lot of first-time home buyers. It's really exciting. Your first home, everyone's moving in, housewarming. Now, just because of the state on the economy, I have a lot of clients that are either, they're buyers or they're investors or they have multiple properties, and maybe their bills are getting higher and they have to restructure things. So it's still helping them, and like maybe they have a higher debt load. They want to put credit cards, lines of credit into their mortgage to lower their monthly payments. It's just not as exciting. For me, it's exciting because I'm like, hey, look at this 5-10 year plan. You're going to be better off in the future because of it. But it's not like, yay, I refinance it, as like when you're getting your first home. I still think it's rewarding to help people. I would say my favorite thing is getting someone into a house and then watching in the future them building equity and realizing, oh, this worked for me. I can actually become an investor now and maybe getting one rental property, two rental property. That's my favorite profile of person. If I
Yo, trust me, son. That right there is I'm experiencing that right now with one of my clients, yo. And
Nice.
she's sitting nice, single, no kids, married yet, and by 29, 30, she's out of here. She's gonna have like a smooth 300 though.
Nice. Yeah, the equity
So,
that built.
yo, and it's like
you're not even paying attention. You're just paying your mortgage like you pay your rent, and then boom.
and yo, with that, it was like the beautiful thing is like to see the progression of like how she started from not understanding, like explaining the concept of like equity and refinancing to her, and her not understanding, to now like she gets it. Like over time, like she asked me questions like incrementally, like how does this work? How does it make sense? Now she's coming to me like, all right, so yo, this, and this. And I'm thinking like, okay, by 29, 30, I could take this amount of it, get a townhouse, and then maybe on the other side, like, we could look into doing some private stuff. I'm like, yo, who are you?
Becomes a teacher.
Yeah, like, who are you? Right? So seeing that happen in real time is beautiful, though. Trust me. What trends have you observed in this market, particularly regarding rates and qualifying, like especially qualifying, because there's a lot of people looking right now that might be ready end of year next year, but like in this climate, like what you seeing specifically around qualifying, but also rates? Like you could start with rates and see like average, like what you see now for 3 and 5 variable versus fixed, and then you can answer like what you see in terms of like what lenders are doing around qualifying. So it's like 2 parts.
So honestly, like if I were a first-time home buyer, this is the time for you. I want to say that because there's always negative, and I hate focusing on negatives, but the positive is this is a buyer's market. It's the craziest buyer's market I've seen in a while, because it's not the best interest rates we've ever had, but the interest rates are good. Like interest rates are good compared to what we've seen over the last 2 years. I want to say, let's see, pre-COVID, normal interest rates were in the 3%, and then COVID happened and they dropped and they dropped and dropped, and then COVID went away and they went up and up and up and up. They probably peaked in the high 6s. Yeah. So after they peaked in the high 6s, now they're starting to come down. So 6.5, 6.25, 6, 5.75, 5.5, coming down in quarters, and now we're all the way into the low 4s. Right. So in my estimation, that's a good interest rate to have. Right. People were complaining when it was 6, complaining when it was 5. I've actually started now looking through my past clients, anyone who bought a purchase during that high climate. Hey, maybe we can switch you over because rates are so much lower now in the low 4s, sometimes even in the high 3s. Does it make sense to pay a break penalty, break your mortgage, and then start with these lower rates? And a lot of times it makes sense. So I have a few clients right now that are like, 100%, it's going to be a lower payment, and in some situations, it'll still keep you paying the mortgage down faster than before, just by breaking that mortgage and getting these, let's say, 4% versus when you locked in 6%, 6.2, 5.7, 5.8. So interest rates are good, and prices are down. And it's crazy because I have so many, the kind of doom and gloom friends that are like, I'm waiting for the market to crash. I'm waiting for the market to crash. And I'm like, okay, it didn't crash per se, but this was the dip you were waiting for.
Yo, I don't think they understand what a crash is, and they also refuse to acknowledge that like markets have perpetual adjustments. Like markets rise and markets fall. Like all we're seeing now in experiences is just contraction back to like normal levels. Every couple of years, like every couple of years we've had like these increase events where prices shoot up rapidly. And then they come back down. But I think like for most people, they are expecting 1995 prices in the GTA, and it's just not happening
They're
no more.
talking to their parents.
I was
Yeah,
telling
their
somebody
parents.
just yesterday. I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
even if they remove HST from the entire supply chain, right? For like to develop a property, even if they remove HST, $500,000 condo or whatever, it will still be in the 400s. So it's still technically like not affordable, so to speak. So like you'd still be in the same place, right? So I don't really understand what people expect, but I always tell them like, yo, Texas prices are not coming to Canada. If you want Texas prices, just move to Texas.
Move to Texas, 100%.
That's what it is.
And then to your second part of the question, which is qualifying, I think they're realizing that they want to stimulate the market. So they have been making changes. They increased insured mortgages up to the 1.5 million. But I think the bigger one that I like is now the 30-year amortization for insured mortgages. So
for first-time buyers, right?
Yeah, only first-time buyers. That's a good point to make. So insured mortgages, if you put a down payment that's less than 20%, and prior to December of last year, you would have had to do 25-year amortization. So now they're allowing you to go all the way to 30, which is just lengthening your loan. But if you were to use, let's say, an average mortgage price, that's going to save you $400 a month.
Yeah.
So that makes it a lot easier for people, especially first-time homebuyers, to get into the market. And I remember when I first started doing presentations, I would always do, okay, this is how much rent is. Why not save up and buy, and then you can compare it to what that price would be. It's making the price to rent and the price to own much more comparable. And of course, there's way more benefits to owning than there is renting.
Yeah, that right there is interesting too, because I got a presentation that I finished that like I have to pitch to a couple different groups, and there's Stats Canada stats in there. Obviously, like there's nothing that I do without stats. Like I just don't get on here and talk. But this study was done in 2022 by Stats Canada, right? And it highlights the wealth disparity between renters and owners. Around our age group, like 30 something, like 36 or whatever to 40 something, the wage gap is like 10x, right? Wow. So like the wage gap between on average from a renter to a homeowner is 10 times. So like let's say the net worth of a renter is 30,000, then the average net worth of a homeowner in that same age cohort would be like in the 3 somethings.
Okay.
When it gets up to like 50s, 60s, it's 30 times.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? So like, right? Like when you look at the age cohorts, like up into like 55 plus onwards to 60, like, dog, these people who own homes, like the average net worths are like 1 point something million in comparison. And I look at that, I'm like, yo, we obviously come from Caribbean backgrounds. Like, I'm looking at that, I'm like, yo, there's mad people I know in that age bracket that never own a house ever.
Sure.
And like, you can't even convince them to get a house now, even if they have all of the necessary things. Like, they just can't see it because they come from a different time and a different culture. And it's like, if I'm not taking on no debt, because if I can't buy a house cash, then I don't want a house at all, right?
Yeah.
Not understanding that, like, ownership in itself, like, it's a act of rebellion. Like, it is an act of rebellion. And then you can't really fault the system if you willingly choose not to have control over your shelter, because we already know that we fall into a racialized group. So even if everything is correct on paper, meaning you got the correct credit score, you got a solid job or whatever, somebody's just not gonna rent you based on the color of your skin.
Sure.
And we see a lot of that. Like, I've seen that happen. I haven't experienced that yet, but I've seen it happen to people that I know and people that I'm close to. Like, they will go and see a sign and be like, yo, is this for sale? And like, they'll just snatch it down, like, for rent. And they'll be like, oh, nah, sorry, I forgot to take it down. And you're looking like, so why was it in the window? Like, if it was, you know what I'm saying? If it was leased a week ago, why you still got the sign up? And then in that same spot, like, obviously, like, I'm in real estate, so I'm going by in the same neighborhood again, and I see the sign back up like 2 days after. I'm like, yo.
Nuts.
but this is what it is out here, right? So
I was reading. I think I seen the story in the news, and they were doing. They were comparing valuations for homes, where they put.
oh yeah, that happened in Oakville.
The pictures in the house.
Yo, that happened in Oakville.
That family. That was crazy.
That happened in Oakville. They appraised when it was the white family and the white family photos, like the property appraised for like 1.3 or 1.2.
Yeah.
And then when it was the black family, like it appraised somewhere in the sevens, like 770 or 780, somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at that, like that's over 300 grand in wealth that's like taken because somebody feel like, nah, you shouldn't own that, or
no, that's criminal. 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's another thing that we'll talk about like off camera, like when because the appraisals, right? Like when it's a black homeowner, like they try to lowball it, right? I don't know if you know Samantha Brooks.
Okay, yeah.
The older black lady.
Yeah.
She used to deal with a lot of that, and she would have to like get on the phone with the lender and like really bark on them, like, yo, we're gonna get a second opinion because you can't like. These are what the comps say. So you're not about to tell me like this is worth 200,000 and 300,000 less because you know what I mean. Yeah. But it happens, man.
It happens. Yeah, I can imagine.
What's the biggest misconception people have about getting a mortgage? On what's one key thing you wish everyone knew when it comes to obtaining a mortgage?
Okay, I'm gonna say, let's say getting a mortgage from a mortgage broker or mortgage agent, just because I had to deal with this a few times this week.
You could break down.
They think that we get like paid extra on top, or that it costs more. So I just want to take this opportunity to tell anyone, if you're considering working with, and it doesn't have to be me, a mortgage agent, mortgage broker, usually we are doing more and we're not charging anything. Any services we're providing, the way that mortgage agents are actually paid, we get paid what's called the finder's fee.
Yeah, by the lender.
From the lender we fix for you. So whether that's TD, whether that's Scotia, they pay the same. So we're really looking out for your best interest and where you fit the best. There's no benefit for me putting you here versus there, right? And there's no us adding a charge on. Oh, however, if you are looking for, I should say, like a prime product or a private mortgage, that's when fees come into play. But if you're an A client and you have A credit and you're comparing us to the banks, there's no fees at all. So I just want to clarify that. That's a big misconception that I hear a lot. Like sometimes I'll even do a full pre-approval and I'll send them on their way and say, go look for their house. And they'll be like, oh, by the way, how much do I owe you? And I'm like, yo, you're good. You're good. Good to go.
Yo, they feel
Don't
like
forget me when you buy.
Yo, they feel like we make a lot more money than we actually do, dog. It's crazy. I mean, like, we can make a lot of money, but most of the time, like on the transaction, like what they think like we're actually gonna make is like it's not really that at all. Like
and self-employment's a grind. Even if we get paid in lump sums. I remember when I one of my first mortgages where I worked on this guy's house for months and then he finished and he's like, so what are you gonna do with the money? I'm like, with the money, I can pay my bills like you pay your bills when you get paid with your paycheck.
The first the first sale transaction that I had, well, I had to split it 50-50 with my team lead, but it was my ex-girlfriend's mother's 2-bedroom condo, like right at Queen and Kennedy. When I looked at like the I got the check, and then when I looked at like the breakdown, like all the expenses, I'm like, nah. Like the first one I got when I was really like, yeah, I'm on, was like an investor deal in Oakwood. And that was supposed to be like a crazy amount, but half of it ended up getting, because it was like a 2-property deal. But I only ended up getting half of it because the investor only closed on half. So that was like
half of it. Then I'm not even gonna mention taxes. Then you gotta pay for your
I got a $20,000 check. What, like 30% of that? Well, 20,000 like half. Nah, I'm lying. It's like 25 before office fees, then like 20,000 or so after. But then once you take out for taxes and then all the expenses and everything, I should back down to like 5 or 6 grand.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly. It's a grind, man. It's a grind.
That's why whenever anybody asks me about real estate, I'm like, yo, you see me doing this, but like I'm trying to get to the investor side of the board because that's where the real money is. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just think it's a lot of money because like you get a like a $20,000 check, right? But I'm like, you're not seeing the deals that I'm doing with the investor who's walking with a $250,000 check or like a $500,000 check after he, renovates this entire thing and then
Or,
refinances out.
or worse than that is you're not seeing the hundreds of deals that I've worked for that pay me nothing, that fall through, where you're getting guaranteed money every 2 weeks, and I could work for a year and just nothing could hit, So
2022 when I lost that deal, it's a miracle I got a hairline right now, man. When I seen that 60,000 go to like 25, I'm like, dog, it's wild, but it's a part of the game.
Actually, you know what I like though, because like one of the hardest things to do in any business, especially any sales, is to lose a client at the last step. You've done all this work and then lose someone.
Bro, they ain't
close. Like they changed that rule with realtors where you guys have to they sign to work with you. What's it called? I don't know what the agreement's called.
Nah, it's that was always in place. Like they just refined it. Yeah, it was always in place. Yeah, it was always in.
Like so because it's hard when you walk away from someone.
So before it's the buyer representation, like right. So before they allowed you to, like you didn't have, like they had to sign in order for you to get paid, like eventually, but it wasn't like mandatory. But now they made it mandatory where they tell you, and it's like protection for real estate agents. Like they pitched it as like it's protection for clients, but we was doing that anyway. So what it is now is just like you still can't force them to or coerce them into signing, but it's like now you actually have the protection. So if you do it and nothing happens, then there's really no recourse the same way like it wasn't before, right? But it's just now it's like, okay, if you want to work with me, then we have to have this agreement because it's outlined by RICO, but it's still the net result is still the same.
Okay.
Yeah, because you don't have to force them. Sticking in the same vein of like qualifications, the RSP loan. When somebody does that, right, in order to purchase that first property, and the one I'm speaking about specifically is like when you don't have an RSP saving account and you went and like you borrow in order to get the funds, does that affect the qualification ratios? Because to be clear, I'm not talking about like when you borrow it out of your RSP already for the first time. I'm talking about like if you get the loan in order to fund RSP account.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. I have a guy that I work with that if anyone is in that position, they're looking for a little extra down payment, I'll send him my way. He'll set it up. He'll do a budget for you. Right. I'm trying to remember if after they budgeted, if that still shows on your credit bureau. Exactly. Yeah. The ratio.
Because I'm not sure because they say like it's non-recourse, right? But you still gotta have the credit and everything to qualify for it, right? So I don't know if it shows up.
It might be something to do with the timing. I don't want to speak on it right now, but one thing I would say is it's a good program. I mean, if it works for you, and especially it helps you with your taxes and it gets you a little boost for the down payment. One thing to keep in mind is if you're taking out the RSP loan, you are still going to have a few things to pay back. You're going to have to pay back the loan. You're going to have to pay back the down payment, and now you're going to get this new mortgage. So one thing to keep in mind, like, don't be house poor, right? So if we set this up and if you qualify for it, it can help you get a larger down payment, which is one of the bigger obstacles. But keep in mind that you will have to pay back these things. It's not something that you can just take and leave there.
Yeah. Well, when you borrow out of it, so if you already have an RSP set up and you borrow out of that, then you have the 2-year grace period for that. You don't have to start paying back until year 2. So if you were to do that now in 2025, you wouldn't have to start repaying until 2027, and then you got 15 years.
And then you get 15 years. I like that. And they just increase it to 60,000.
Right.
So that's
good. And then on the other one, so if you don't have any sort of down payment, I mean, any sort of RSP contributions, and you borrow in order to fund that first or that initial amount for your RSP, then that one you got to start repaying in 30 days.
Okay, so you know better than I do. And that's
exactly I just know the repayment guidelines. I don't know about the TDS and GDS if it affects it.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that. But
that's your side.
Right? I'm messing up, but you hit the point on the head where the loan that you're borrowing to put into RSPs, that's what people forget because you have to pay back that one.
Yeah, you gotta start.
Then you gotta pay back the RSP one, right? So you gotta pay back.
It only works. Listen, people. this is a Hail Mary. This is a bomb down the field. So this is worst case scenario. You got a job, you got decent credit, but you just don't have the down payment set aside. This only works in two instances. One would be pre-construction when pre-construction was a thing, but pre-construction is dead and it will be for like the next 3 to 5 years until they move all of this current resale inventory. And then on the other side of that, it only works if you can find a deal, which you can right now, that's significantly under market value. So we're talking like 200-300 grand under market value. So you go in, but obviously you'd have to get, I guess like a second mortgage to complete the renovations. Then you do all of the renovations, you refinance at the new ARV, and whatever money you get out, you just use it to clear all of the debt. So you clear that RSP amount, and then you clear whatever you borrowed for the construction costs. So that way it's like you dead that in about a year or two. So that's the only way it makes sense. Like to do it, to just go buy something that's in great condition that's moving ready, you're gonna kill yourself because not only do you got the mortgage, but then you got that payment on top of that to make too, and that could really kill you. And like you said, if you're house poor, then you basically renting at that point.
Right. And you know what? I'm glad you explained that because that's something that you probably see more often than me. But I always like how you look for like creative solutions and programs like that. You're really good at those.
Of course, you have to right now, or else you're just gonna be renting forever.
So you want to talk it all about? You touched on it. The pre-construction market. That's just completely gone, eh? I've seen some horror stories out here.
Yo, it's funny. You know how like girls, how, like some girls say like the girlies that get it, and the ones that don't. Yo, the guys that get it, and the ones that don't, they get taxed, man. And it's like, I understand like the apprehension behind hearing you should buy right now because every realtor from every walk of life is going to say that, right? For the most part, that's the messaging you're going to hear. Again, we need to do a better job as an industry putting things in a context. Pre-construction is dead because the input costs from COVID to now, like it's increased significantly, right? So the advantage pre-construction used to have was there was always like about a $200 delta between it coming to market and whatever resale was. So whatever existing inventory was on the marketplace, it was always about roughly $200 more than pre-construction. So right away, once you buy, like you buy in at a lower price essentially. So you have a $200 buffer that you could work up to, right? So when you think about that in terms of like value, it's the difference between you purchasing a property right now. Well, back then that would be 500,000, and then in 5 years it'd be worth 7 or 750 because of that delta. But now most things that are coming to market are like 14 or higher.
Yeah, the builders got greedy.
You know what I'm saying? And
they started anticipating what the price would be instead of actually saying this is the price today. Right?
They started building exactly. They started building with what this is what we want it to be in 5 years. But it's like, yo, none of us got a crystal ball. So how are you gonna sit here and sell me a product that you saying for sure it'll be worth that? Like at that point, like yo, we just in a casino, like gambling, right? So it's dead right now because when you look at resale, like pick any market, downtown, Pill, Durham. When you look at resale, like things are now anywhere between $950 to $1,200 resale. So you gotta look at that. And if everything this pre-construction now is coming in at 14 on average, and then when you get to the downtown core, it's even worse. It's probably like 17 or 18. Like, of course, it just makes sense to buy resale. So, and all collectively, resale inventory is like up over 60,000. So, you know what I mean? Like there's over 30,000, I believe, and just condos alone in the GTA market.
It's
So,
gonna take a while to get back.
it's not coming back until arguably maybe like 28 to 30. And that's me being, I don't know, like just wishful, but it is what it is. But to your point you made a minute ago, like it's the perfect window, and I've been saying that since like last month in my stories and all that. Like right now, everybody who is thinking about getting their first property, they got about a 18 to 22 month window before the needles shifts back the other way. So if you don't make any moves right now in the next 18 to 22 months outside of that, God bless. And when you're gonna buy anything now, if you're gonna buy anything right now, especially if you're looking at condos, I would suggest, if you're looking at condos, be very careful with the floor plans. Try to look for a symmetrical floor plan, like one that's more square than it's rectangular. Rectangular units have a tough time selling. Don't go buy a bachelor either, because the price looks attractive. Like you might be able to pick one up now in the mid 3s, low 4s. Those are tough to sell. So don't do that.
What would you say about someone who's been trying to get their foot in the door and they can live in a bachelor? Would you say go get your bachelor and live, or are you saying no for anyone?
I would say no. I would say no. And the only way it would make sense is if you buy it as like a anchor piece. So something that you buy it and you pay into and build the equity, and then you leverage it, get the equity out, but you still hold on to it. Because in any market, it's a tough sell. Like it's one of those, a bachelor is one of those things like you just keep and you lease it out indefinitely, or it becomes a short-term rental piece, or just a anchor piece for your portfolio. But in terms of using it like as a building block in the property ladder, like it's dead for that. It's quiet. There's no point in doing it because you won't be able to get rid of it. So that's what I got for right now when it comes to all of that. What's your top piece of advice for first-time buyers navigating like this current market? And are you seeing any specific incentive programs right now to help them? I know you said like you haven't really done it in a while, but if you were to give them some advice, like what would it be?
Yeah, I like the first-time homebuyers account that they set up recently.
Right.
Take advantage of that. The sooner the better. If you have any extra money, put that in before tax time. It reduces your income, so you're gonna pay less in taxes. And then when you do buy your house, eventually, whatever's accumulated in there, it will be tax-free when you take it out, as long as you put it towards your first house. That's a really good program. I wish that was around before I bought my first property, because even if you just do it right now, I think it's maximum 8,000 per year, but you can put 8,000 in, lower your income by 8,000, and then get that, and then put it right away. If I could have, I would have maxed it out. And in terms of if it's your first time buying a house, it's better than the TFSA. It's better than RSP. So take advantage of that. If you plan on buying in the next 5 years, that's a really good way to save yourself
everything
some
is
money.
better than RSP though. Like, it's the worst one. TFA is the best joint. I don't care what nobody say. Like I'll die on that hill. Good. What strategies do you have for buyers right now? Any buyer looking to boost their down payment? Any strategies or any programs that could help them do that?
Strategies to boost their down payment. I have recently heard some people doing rent to own again. I'm not huge on it, so I'm not going to touch too much on that. There is the RSP loan program that we talked. That's good if it works for you. That if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So it's just about sitting down and seeing if that works for you. In terms of down payment, I think, is there any other ones that you wanted me to touch on?
Rent to own is whatever. They already know how I feel about that. I explained that like 260 times already, telling like it's not as straightforward or as easy as it sounds. And
no, it's really not.
If you
not in this economy.
In any economy, really, like if you need it, essentially it's a lease with the option to buy, and the landlord, like you're treating not the landlord, you're treating the owner as a bank, like they're helping you save. So if somebody got to help you save, then clearly you
Right?
don't
You
have
should
the
be able to do this yourself.
clearly you don't have the
Yeah.
financial discipline to own a house. So you should
Yeah.
stay away from that altogether.
Agreed.
A couple of these we kind of like went through or touched on, so I'm just gonna breeze them. So one more before we get into the rapid.
Okay.
Looking ahead, what are your general expectations for the market? You know, like just from
Yeah.
your
So
vantage point.
I think variable mortgages are back. It's always switching. That's probably the number one mortgage question: variable or fixed. What should I go? Fixed mortgages are cheaper than they were. Like I said, it's been going down, been going down, been going down. I also like to talk about your risk appetite when you choose variable or fixed, because although I think things are headed down, I think your variable, even if it starts higher, it'll end up lower than your fixed. Some people just don't have the risk appetite. They want to sleep better at night. They wouldn't want to be constantly checking. If that's you and you're like, I want to know what my payment is, I don't want it to change, go with the fixed. If you want to play the game of real estate, there's two things. Of course, we have the conversation of where we think the market's going. I think it's going down. There's a Bank of Canada announcement actually this week, and I think they're going to cut it at least 25 points.
Yeah,
Then
Wednesday.
Right? And Wednesday. So you can go into a variable, but also a strategy, even if you wanted a fixed, but you agree, and if you're staying in tune with things, that things are headed down, you can actually get a variable with the plan to lock into a fixed 6 to 8 months from now. Because in mortgages, if you get a fixed, it's fixed. You can't really change anything. But if you get a variable mortgage, you can still lock into a fixed mortgage with that lender anytime during your term, whether that's a 3 or 5 years, penalty free. Right? So that might be even a strategy if you're like, I want a fixed mortgage, but I think it still has space to go. We'll study with a variable. I'll watch it for you over the next 6 to 8 months. And then if I say this, I think this is the peak, or if you're like, I'm comfortable with this number, we'll lock in at that fixed.
Yeah, anybody that asks me like which one, that's what I've been preaching this entire time. Just because I know, like, nobody wants to be on the downside of like rates, right? So nobody wants to be in a variable and then rates, increase, and then your payments increase as well. But I always gotta tell them, it's like you have to pay attention to the economy, like. You know what I'm saying? It don't matter if, like, bro, you could be, I don't know, man, like the soup man after the Fed. You know what I mean? You could be the soup man, right? And that's all you do. That's your livelihood. You make soup to pull up after the parties and whatever. You could be generating a significant amount of money, but just because you do that and it's like not tied to anything financial, I think a lot of people believe like the economy and the financial aspect of the economy, it should only matter if like I work in finance, like I work for the bank or I work in insurance, or like I'm an analyst on Bay Street or whatever. Like, no. Even if you do that, you got to know what's going on, because you got to know at everybody, if you own a home or you own property or you want to become a homeowner, a property owner, you constantly have to know what part of the cycle we in. Real estate is a cycle. It goes like this: bottom, whoop, top, bottom, whoop. That's how it goes. Like every couple of years, it's the same cycle. Some cycles are slower than others, and some are faster than others. So you got to know. Because one of the biggest issue right now is like all the people who overpaid for a house during the pandemic, they're coming into one of the two reasons. Either they're gonna be getting a mortgage that's significantly higher than the one that they got 5 years ago, if they got a 5-year fix, or they're walking into a situation where they're underwater in the house. So they bought something for 1.4 million and now it's worth 850,000. And that's what happens when you don't pay attention to market cycles and you work with people who just tell you buy without context. And at the end of the day, the easiest thing is the easiest thing, right? When something goes wrong with somebody, you notice, you've been doing this long enough. When something goes wrong with somebody's purchase, or they feel like they got hustled or this ain't what the first person they point to is the agent. And then if they can't, they point to the mortgage broker, like, yo, you didn't explain this to me, or I didn't know that if I got a variable when rates increase, my payments
never them.
increase. It's never them. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, yo, you should have that understanding walking into any type of purchase. But you know, it is what it is, and this is what we got to deal with.
I mean, at the end of the day, it is our fault. Because you know it's gonna be our fault.
Yeah, we gotta take we gotta take accountability.
We gotta take it. It's part of the job, right?
Yeah. Like me personally, like my personal philosophy is never put money before the client. Like I literally say the moment I put money before the client, I let the devil in the room. At that point, you're not thinking what's the best interest for the client. Like you're just worried about your bottom line. And trust me, I say just by the nature of like how I operate my business and like my particular knowledge base and expertise, like it's always from the perspective of an investor. So even if you're just going to be an end user, that's how I'm looking at it. Because at the end of the day, even if you're just an end user, like you're still technically by definition an investor because you're putting money into property with the expectation of a profit. Yeah. So if I just tell you to buy this knowing that it's trash and then in 3-4 years, like you'll be underwater, then you know what I'm saying?
Well, at the end of the day, we're gonna have people that disagree with us, and we're gonna give good, solid advice and have people going the other way.
And he's going to do whatever anyways.
Our job is to just make sure we give you that information. We did our due diligence. We've informed you of the choice. If you still don't want us to work with us or listen to our advice, we can still facilitate the transaction. But that's when it becomes transactional as against educational. We want to be there to educate you. So
some people ain't trying to hit on it.
Yeah.
But anyways, man, rapid fire time. First one.
All right.
Best lesson you learned from failure.
Ooh, best lesson I learned from failure, I guess, just not to take it personal. Think of it, look at it from a place of abundance, because like you know, and we talked about this briefly earlier. Like when you put your hard or you worked really hard for something and then it doesn't pan out, doesn't work out, that can slow you down and stop you from getting the next one, the next day, right? So you got to just keep it moving. There'll be more tomorrow, and just like try to stay positive, because it's just another thing about self-employment. It's a stressful job, right? There are times where it's very stressful. You don't take it home. Just keep it moving.
Yo, people be asking me about kids and family. I'm like, yo, do y'all understand? Like, chicken breast is $30. Like, what y'all talking about? I got way more work to do. Best lesson you learned from success.
Best lesson I learned from success. It's kind of similar. Like I believe that you should celebrate all the little wins just to keep yourself kind of positive. But you have to understand that you could sell a huge mansion tomorrow. You're gonna have bills again a couple months later. You got to keep going. So don't let it get to your head. Get back to your routine. No matter if you have a big win today or a big win next week, the next day is gonna keep coming, right? So you got to keep some sort of routine. Keep to it.
Right. Best advice you ever received. It could be in life or business.
You know what? I said this in a video I did, and it was the owner of our company, Find You, because he said it with me, and it just resonated so much with my personality as like an ex-athlete. We were at a work party, and then of course there's always awards, and I was fairly new in the industry, and there was someone that just got the top agent of the year, and he's like, listen, you see these guys, it looks like they know more than you, it looks like they're doing more volume than you. You got to look at them and be like, if you could do it, like, why not you? And it's just a question, right? It's a question you can ask yourself. And it's worked for me 1,000 times. If I see someone doing well, I'm like, why him? Why not me? Right? Why not you? And that was always helpful in me getting my competitive juices going. And if I got to do more, I got to do more. But it could be you.
Nah, that's a great perspective to have. Like I always say, my personal philosophy is jealousy is unproductive. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not getting you any closer or further to where you're trying to be, so it's pointless. You know what I mean? So to your point, where you say when you see people doing great things, you ask yourself like, why not me? Like, yeah, I could do that.
Exactly. Use it. Use it as motivation. Yeah.
Best book recommendation you ever received. I don't know if you read.
It's so funny. I'm right in front of me. The Never Split the Difference I like for negotiating. I don't know if that's going to be my best recommendation. That's probably the one that I read most recently. I liked Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that kind of pre-real estate where I just kind of got my mind around asking for liability, pointing me in the direction of being a business owner as against an employee.
Right.
So maybe as foundation, I'll say that.
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Last one. If you could have a business mentor, dead or alive, who would it be?
Business mentor, dead or alive? I want to say, like, I'm gonna say one of the big guns, like a Warren Buffett, but he's not really real estate. I just like the way he looks at business in general.
No, it is business. Everybody thinks he's like a stock investor, but he's not. He buys businesses. That's all.
Yeah. And then he'll compare the two businesses. What I like about him is there's nothing flashy about what he's doing. He just tried and true. He'll look at the financials, he'll compare, and then he'll develop a strategy. It's not like a get rich quick or a lot of the tech guys we see. Some of them are amazing, but it's very slow and steady wins the race.
He's very meticulous in his approach though, for sure. He's not as flashy as like tech guys. Yep.
I said, what about you?
Yeah, that's tough. Like some days I feel like it would probably be Steve Jobs, but then other days I feel like it would probably be Andrew Carnegie. Okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, cause it like just the way that they conceptualized industry and like dominated it. That's kind of like why, like it was less about like seeing business for what it is, but more like what it could be. Right? So it's like like they actually just removed themselves in order to build the businesses that they built. They removed themselves from it to see like, and not even like on an anticipation type of level. It's just like this could be a lot of things, right? Not just saying like, or like one day this business could be like a giant business or whatever. That's never the case. Like they looked at it as like, yo, this can be so many things, and that's how they navigated and shaped industry. So it'd probably be like one of those two guys.
Yeah. That was a good answer. Good answer.
Yeah, man. But
hey, and why not you? We gotta get there.
Trust me, in my own kind of goals, like like I got some shit like written down and planned out, right? So
manifested.
Yeah, total global domination. But
love it.
That's it, my man. You know what I mean? I appreciate. I appreciate you doing this for me, man. Like I wasn't sure if you would, you know what I mean, but I appreciate you, my Grenadian, my soccer brother.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, man, and hopefully, once things start turning around, we could get some business on the board, and do what it do. So, thank you again, man. Appreciate it. Quickly, you can let the people know where to reach you because I'm gonna post this after.
Yeah, and send it to me. I'll hopefully clip it up. But if you want to follow me, it's Jerome Does Mortgages at Jerome Does Mortgages on Instagram, is where I put most of my content. Any questions? I'm easy to talk to. DM me. Happy to help. And especially, if you come from Terry, I'll put that extra effort in. So thanks.
All right, man. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. To everybody that pulled up, thank you again for tuning into Stash Talk. And we'll be back at some point. You heard?
For sure. We'll be back.
All right, man. Take it easy, bro.